Hello and welcome to the viewers of this video. This is the Orange Fan here, bringing you another entry for the episode Recap and Thoughts category. This video will be dedicated to the B segment of episode 16 of The Loud House, Out on a Limo. We begin this segment with Lincoln revealing to the audience that a mustard brand company called Seeds had a contest where one of the jars of mustard that they had out had a prize where you could ride in a limo for a whole day, and Lincoln managed to find the prized jar of mustard, and he's patiently waiting for the limo to arrive. He even offered his sisters the chance to ride in the limo with him. Eventually, a yellow limo appears, and a man by the name of Kirby, voiced by John DiMaggio, greets Lincoln, saying that he'll be his personal chauffeur for the day. The sisters are all excited as well once they get into the limo, and they have different ideas about where they want to go. However, Lori does mention that since Lincoln was the one who won the contest, they should let him have his fun in the limo for a while before he brings them along for something else. Lincoln decides to pick them up at 5 o'clock so they can all go to the Bourbon Burger restaurant. And so the sisters wave Lincoln goodbye as he and Kirby head off to who knows where throughout Royal Woods. Kirby is relieved that Lincoln insists that he call him by his name rather than sir, saying how he's used to driving arrogant jerks around. And Lincoln suggests that maybe they just go to Flip's Food and Fuel so he can have a Flip's equivalent of a slushie or a smoothie or something to that effect. Now, as they arrive, Papa Wheelie actually is the one who's getting something from Flip, but then when Flip sees the limo, he actually pushes him aside and gives Lincoln a complimentary smoothie, saying that he never gave Lincoln anything free before because he never rode in a limo before. And then the news reporter makes her first official appearance in the series, since her only other appearance so far was as part of Lincoln's extended fantasy sequence in Butterfly Effect, to interview the new limo rider. But then, soon enough, a white limo rides up next to him, and the rider lowers the window to reveal an old man who's also very wealthy. He introduces himself as Lord Tetherby, voiced by Alan Ruck, although for some reason the credits list the character's name as Tethers. Maybe that was his proto-name before they settled on Tetherby. In any case, though, Lord Tetherby reveals that he's heir to the Tetherball fortune, and he mistakes Lincoln as being heir to the mustard fortune because Lincoln answers that he got the limo through mustard. But in any case, Lord Tetherby offers Lincoln the chance to join him at his country club, and, well, Lincoln takes Tetherby up on his offer. After arriving and thanking Kirby for the ride, Lincoln is awed by Lord Tetherby's country club and just how wealthy the man is. Although Lord Tetherby's not too fond of hearing Lincoln acting friendly with the help. He advises him against that, saying that it confuses the help, in his words. And over the course of the segment, then we see a montage where Lincoln is hanging out with Lord Tetherby in their limos, doing a lot of stuff, a lot of different activities. But then when Lincoln hears it's almost 5 o'clock, he says he has to get back home so he can take his sisters to the Bourbon Burger. But Lord Tetherby says that he shouldn't do that, saying it's not very becoming of someone to go to a restaurant named after a bodily function, burping. And when Lincoln tries to say that his sisters are also waiting for him, Lord Tetherby just dismisses it as they all have embarrassing relatives, mentioning one relative that he thinks lowly of. Unfortunately, this starts to give Lincoln this influences Lincoln in a bad way, where he starts to embrace Tetherby's snobbish and arrogant attitude. And as this is going on, the sisters are getting very impatient and very angry that Lincoln isn't there by 5 o'clock. Later on, Lord Tetherby actually gives Lincoln an invitation to the country club later that night to welcome him as a new member because of his limo, and he advises Lincoln to wear a black tie event. It's a black tie event, he says. As Lincoln returns home, he tries to sneak in without his sisters knowing, but they catch him and they question why he didn't come when he said he would. And he mentions about his time with Lord Tetherby, but they say but they are furious that he abandoned his family just to hang out with an old rich guy. But yeah, Lincoln starts to recite some of the rhetoric that Lord Tetherby had said earlier, and it's not very becoming, to say the least. Though as for the black tie event, Lincoln just uses magic marker to make his outfit look fancy. Later on, though, the limo gets caught in a traffic jam, and unfortunately for Kirby, Lincoln is starting to act like the very snobbish riders that he doesn't like, Lincoln even insisting that he should call him sir instead. But then when a beeping happens, it turns out that the day of the limo is up, and Kirby, not too happy with how Lincoln has acted, kicks him out of the limo and drives off, even though there was a traffic jam not too long ago. Must have cleared up pretty quickly. But anyway, Lincoln tries to walk to the country club himself, but he has a bad run-in with some stray dogs, which leaves him battered and bruised. Eventually, he makes it to the country club, but Lord Tetherby questions where his limo is. When Lincoln admits he no longer has it, Tetherby kicks him out of the country club, saying that he only fit in splendidly when he had a limo. He goes to pop some of the Lincoln balloons, and his butlers kick Lincoln out, and the news reporter drives by and interviews Lincoln how he fell from grace. It's at that moment where Lincoln realizes how he acted arrogantly, but when the mention of the Bourbon Burger, when he says he should have fulfilled his promise to his sisters about the Bourbon Burger, it gives him an idea to set things right. He asks if the news reporter would give him a ride, but she says it's just not done to let people ride in the news van, and they drive off, leaving Lincoln behind, and the stray dogs attack again. The next day, the sisters see the yellow limo is back outside and worry that Lincoln's recent behavior might still appear, but Lincoln actually says the limo is for them. He owns up to the fact that he did act like an arrogant jerk to them and that it was wrong for him to break his promise to them. He actually did call Kirby and apologize to him as well, hoping that they could make an exception to have one more day, this time with the sisters involved all the way through, and apparently Kirby appreciated Lincoln's apology and agreed to set these circumstances up. The sisters are quick to forgive Lincoln, and they all head to the Bourbon Burger, and where they all have their burgers. Lincoln even makes sure that Kirby gets one too, as probably again a show of thanks and to make amends, and Kirby appreciates the gesture. But as they're riding, Lord Tetherby arrives in his limo yet again, and seeing Lincoln back in the limo, he tempts him with the offer to leave behind who he calls the riffraffs and join him at the country club once again. Although Lincoln is surprised by the gesture and he looks between Lord Tetherby and his family and Kirby, he ends up deciding, along with his family, to spray Lord Tetherby with some mustard before they drive off, and that's where the segment ends. Now, I have to say, Out on a Limo is a segment that I actually have better thoughts about it now than I did when I first saw it. Part of that might have been because the segments that premiered along with it in that week, I liked those segments better, but looking back on it and rewatching it, I actually have a better opinion about it than I did originally. It's still not one of my favorites, but at the same time, I don't consider it to be one of the worst segments. It actually has some good points to it, and that's what we're going to talk about here. The thing I liked about this was, similar to Making the Case, this was a good example of showing Lincoln being in the wrong and making up for it. It didn't feel like disproportionate retribution to me, or it didn't feel like it was needlessly or it didn't feel like they tried to vilify Lincoln. It felt more like, yeah, Lincoln did something wrong, got a reasonable comeuppance for it, but he made up for it in the end. And part of that was because, actually, let's talk about what the plot line is in general. Like, there is a general plot line used in stories about how a person becomes an arrogant jerk when they become rich. And, well, like I said before, execution is more important than how many times it's been done in the past, if you were to ask me. And I thought this was executed well. And it had its own twist to it because Lincoln didn't actually become rich in this segment. No, he was just a kid who got to ride in a limo for a day because he won a contest. And even then, simply riding in the limo didn't make Lincoln into an arrogant jerk. It was the bad influence of Lord Tetherby. And that's partially actually what I liked about this segment was it was shown that the only reason Lincoln's less flattering qualities came out was because of the bad influence of Lord Tetherby, who actually was a rich person that was an arrogant, condescending jerk. Now, of course, not all rich people are arrogant, condescending jerks, and I'm sure that there were some, I'm sure they'll have some segments that do show some nice rich people, and to be fair, like, the McBride family isn't they're not necessarily rich, but they are better off than the Loud family, and they're nice people. And there's another family that seemed to be maybe not rich necessarily, but still better off, but still pretty nice. We'll cover them when we get to their segment. That won't be till season 2. But in Lord Tetherby's case, he fulfilled his intended role. I mean, yeah, he's an arrogant jerk, and that's what he's supposed to be, though. He's supposed to be an arrogant jerk, so mission accomplished. They set out what they did with the character. And actually what makes Lord Tetherby stand out is, well, in a show like The Loud House, it's a slice of life show, so there really isn't any truly evil characters in The Loud House. There's no real villains in it. At the very most, you'd have the antagonistic jerk variety of the Type 4 anti-villains, and that's what Lord Tetherby was. He pretty much was... He was as close as you can get to a villain in a show that doesn't have any actual villains in it. He really doesn't have... He's not evil, but he really didn't have any redeeming qualities to him. And what I liked about it was, in other cases where Lincoln... Like I've said before, there are some segments where even if Lincoln might have been in the wrong, he sometimes is the only character who gets the blame, even though other characters share the fault. They didn't do that here, because while Lincoln was in the wrong for letting Lord Tetherby's bad influence get the better of him, it was acknowledged Lord Tetherby was also at fault because he was the root of the conflict. It was Lord Tetherby's fault that Lincoln started to act like an arrogant jerk, and he didn't get away with his bad behavior. He didn't get a slap on the wrist for it. Lord Tetherby actually did pay the price for his bad behavior when he tried to tempt Lincoln with back into the country club. Lord Tetherby tempted Lincoln with the prospect of getting back into the country club when he had a limo again, and well, Lincoln and the sisters, sprayed the guy with mustard for the troubles he's caused. So that's what I liked. It didn't just pin all the blame on Lincoln. It showed Lincoln really is a good kid at heart, but some bad influence did get the better of him, but he overcame it, and the one responsible for that bad influence did pay the price for what they did. I can't help but wonder if we'll ever see Lord Tetherby again. So far, at the time of the recording of this video, this is his only appearance, but I think he could return as maybe he could fill in the antagonist role for some other segments. I mean, because he's not really a sympathetic character. He could make a good adversary for some other stories in the future. So I actually wouldn't mind if he showed up again, if only because he fills the antagonist role very well. And, well, there you have it. So, while I still favor the A segment over the B segment for episode 16, I still don't dislike the B segment, and I actually do think a little better of it now than I did in the past. And with that covered, we've now discussed both segments of episode 16 on this channel. Take care, and until next time.